This is the Investor Connect podcast program. I'm Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of this show in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, family offices, private equity, and many other investors for early stage and growth companies. I hope you enjoy this episode. Interested in learning more about investing in startups, launching a new startup and need to raise funding? The Startup Funding Espresso is a daily podcast in a short, concise format delivered to your inbox every day, Monday through Friday. In the time it takes to drink an espresso, you can learn about startup funding. To subscribe, go to investorconnect.org and put your email into the pop-up box. Well, hello, this is Hall Martin with Investor Connect. Today we're here with Kevin Rivers, managing partner at Black Ventures, LLC. Black Ventures is an emerging private equity firm that buys digital assets in wildly inefficient markets, whether it's music rights apps, YouTube IPs, and enterprise software or books. They're interested in working with you. Kevin, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So tell us more about your background. What were you doing before you started investing in early stage companies?
So before I've been like an angel investor, I've been in the music business for over 17 years, having started multiple tech startups in the music space. I started my first tech startup in high school, kind of like grew from a small indie record label to a more digital aggregator. Then in 2010, we ended up launching the first Facebook music store, which garnered attention from TechCrunch and other news sources, where we negotiated licensing with all the major record companies and artists, and giving access to millions of songs on a Facebook platform when Facebook was a platform network. And then after that, launched another business that generated millions of dollars in revenue, and from there sold that company, and after that just started to invest in startups and invest in companies. And now with Black Ventures, we're on a path of actually acquiring businesses, and this is a great opportunity right now to be in this space as things start to consolidate. And so this is basically a pretty short background story for me.
That's great. So what excites you right now?
So a lot of things excite me. So what's really exciting is the convergence of artificial intelligence, AI, and the digital media space. And so now you have, exciting tools that allow just about anybody to utilize these AI tools to auto-generate and produce compositions. This is something that hasn't been done in a very long time. And so now for the first time, you don't have to be a very talented musician. You can actually be a hobbyist, music lover, and be able to produce content, just by utilizing artificial intelligence and AI. So it's incredible. It's very exciting.
That's great. So what's your advice for people investing in startups? What do you tell them to do before they write that first check?
So usually when I speak to, my investing partners, I always tell them to do their due diligence, get to know the founders, because there's some amazing founders out there that has great backgrounds, great stories, and what's most important is that, as an investor, you're not really investing so much in the product, you're mostly invested in the person. And so from my perspective, when I look at a deal, I like to make sure that I'm betting on the person. And so I'm betting on that person to execute their vision and their idea. And so that would be a great advice I would give to any new investor or existing investor.
Great. And so on the other side of that table, what's your advice for people that are running startups? What do you tell them to do before they go out to make that fundraise?
A good question. So basically what I do, I always tell them to bootstrap as much as possible, make sure that they self-fund to profitability. If they can grow the business without raising money, that's actually the best thing to do. But if they have to raise capital, then I encourage them to raise capital. But as an investor, when I look at a startup, I usually like to see that if there's at least either a market concept or a market fit, or they have some traction, some kind of revenue metrics or user metrics or other benchmarks. And so this allows me to, really engage and get a full understanding of the execution and the kind of ethics that founder has utilized when building their business. For me, it's very important that as a founder, you're able to build your startup using your own cash, and then as you scale, be able to invite outside capital to really help you, jumpstart that second growth stage.
Great. So let's talk about the state of startup investing. How do you see the industry evolving from here? Where do you think it's going?
It's definitely a lot different as opposed to like say 10 years ago. I mean, now, especially with the pandemic, with COVID, you're going to see a lot more deals being done virtually online, as opposed to like a coffee, cafe meeting. Even though those are very traditional and very useful, now, investors are becoming more welcoming to startups and founders to meet through a Zoom call or like a FaceTime to really be able to connect with them. So I could definitely see a good transition there. Also, you're going to see a lot of play, particularly in the fintech space. So there's a lot of activity, particularly in more of the rural markets, like let's say like Africa and in the Asian markets, where there's so much room for building financial tools and developments that hasn't really been tapped yet. And so you're going to see a huge activity there. And then, of course, in the media space where I'm at, there's huge consolidation in this space. And so as an investor, it's a great opportunity to start investing in media startups that's building content, creating content. And if you're in the private equity space, it's a great time to acquire and build the overall business.
Well, great. And so what do you think is the biggest change we'll see in, say, the next 12 months?
As far as investing, I would say we're going to see more AI invested startups, definitely a lot of blockchain technology being created, more currency. We're going to definitely see more Internet of Things. We're going to see more, consumer wearables as well as consumer audio. Definitely consumer audio. With the advent of like audio platforms and messaging like Clubhouse, we're going to see a lot more ways for communication, how people can create conversations and share ideas. You're going to see a lot of activity being produced within those kind of markets.
Well, great. Well, let's talk about your investment thesis and what you invest in. Can you tell us more about your thesis and how it works?
Sure. So we believe that in our space as a private equity firm, we feel that a lot of the even middle market companies, they go after companies that's doing 5 million or more in annual revenue. And as a result, founders that's doing less than 5 million in annual revenue they don't have the right access to capital to offset their business or to invest in a different venture. And so our thesis is that we believe that by acquiring these kind of companies, we're able to provide access to capital to these kind of founders that's looking to, basically sell their business. At the same time, we're able to get, basically like small fishes and turn those small fishes into a much bigger whale and grow that whale to become a much greater business. And so what we're doing now is that we're focusing more on YouTube. We feel that the YouTube market is a pretty hot market right now. Just this past year, YouTube has paid out $4.5 billion to the record companies, and that's just the music business, not including the film business and the video game business. And so as a private equity company, we're definitely actively looking to acquire new YouTube channels and businesses that's generating great cash flow and allow us to grow the overall business, the overall YouTube business as we acquire and merge these businesses in one larger company.
Oh, wow. It's quite a bit. So, do you have any startups that fit that thesis you can tell us more about?
Yeah. So for example, we recently acquired a YouTube business about a few months ago, and they're actually, based more on Arabic markets. And what really piqued our interest is that this particular YouTube business has roughly over 1 million subscribers. Very active, and they have a lot of audio catalog. And so, since our existing business, being in the music space, we have relationships with, Apple and Spotify. We're able to leverage that asset and be able to grow that asset even more outside of the YouTube ecosystem. So it really worked out perfectly. And so things like that, and other, space, we see, channels that created, top 10, arts, or top 10, celebrity gossip, things like that, where we can see ways that we can create other verticals like a podcast where users can be more engaged. Those are ways that we feel we can add more value to those kind of businesses.
Well, great. So, let's talk about the challenges out there in the market today. What are the challenges in the space for the startup?
So for startup, I think right now, I think the challenge is going to be really about execution. As a startup founder, when you're launching your first tech startup, it's really about, you really got to do a lot of, really do your homework. Really, research, find out what your market is, figure out what your competitors is, who your competitors are, and then really kind of figure out how to really attack the problem that you're trying to solve, and see if it's really meant to be solved. And so I think that's a really big challenge. Another challenge is really utilizing the current infrastructure of development, and building the platform or product, without having to occur too much cost. Because even with venture-backed startups, they've raised money, but they haven't really fully tapped into other resources where they can kind of lower costs, and as a result, their burn rate goes through the roof, and then they end up having to shut down the company. So to me, I can definitely see those becoming huge challenges for the startup ecosystem.
Great. And then, what are the challenges in the space for the investor you see out there?
Um, for investors, I think it just depends on their focus. I know for us, when we look at pre-seed deals and seed deals, the challenge for us has really been about, going back to execution. Can the founder perform on their idea? Can they execute their vision? Are they, do they have that like hustle or grit, if you will? And so we tend to look at things like that, and see if there's a product market fit. Do they have the traction to back up their, basically their own thesis? And so as an investor, the challenge is definitely going to be finding the right deal that fits the portfolio, and also finding the right founder that can execute on those kind of visions.
Right. Well, you see a lot of different subsectors and applications out there. If you had to pick one or two that are good immediate opportunities for investors to pursue, what do you put at the top of the list?
For applications, I would definitely say like audio. Definitely audio is a big one. So any apps that's focusing on creating audio as a way of communication, really, real time audio, drop audio. I think those are huge opportunities. Anything that deals with utilizing AI, to reduce productivity, whether it's an enterprise level or consumer level. I think those are also great opportunities as an investor. And really, it's just really based on the investor's appetite, what they're into. And so, I think that'd be great. Absolutely.
Cool. Well, in the last minutes that we have here, what else should we cover that we haven't?
So, I think what's important is for investors to really bet big. Bet big, bet really good. Really focus on the vision that they have. I know for us, right now we're actually in the process of raising our first inaugural fund, which geared towards acquiring the YouTube business. And so what we look for is that we look for YouTubers and channels and assets that we can feel can align with the overall vision of how we can grow a large business on the YouTube market. And so for Black Ventures, our ultimate mission is to provide access to capital from an underserved market.
Very good. Well, so how best for those listeners to get back in touch with you?
Sure. So any listener that's interested in learning more about Black Ventures, they can visit my LinkedIn profile, or they can email us at sales at blkvc.com. And even myself or one of my partners will reach out, and let's work together.
Great. We'll put that in the show notes. I want to thank you for joining us today and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon.
All right, Hall. Thank you so much for having me.
Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Hall T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.